Welcome back to Choices Were Made. Last week, we talked about unromanticizing marriage and children. And in preparation for our guest next week, today we're diving into our personal journeys with plastic surgery and body image. Next week, we'll be joined by a guest who provides post-op care for individuals who've had plastic surgery. So let's get into it.
This one's going to be a hard one. I feel like we say that every time, but yeah, these are hard topics to talk about.
I feel like especially for us being women that grew up not talking about any of this stuff, these are such vulnerable topics talking about body image because as we talked about in some other episodes, we grew up around crash diets.
Yeah.
So for us, having a healthy relationship with your body is crash dieting for a month and then treating it badly and then crash dieting for another month.
Yeah, which totally is a great segue. Like, I remember when I first had surgery, I was 22 years old. So this was back in like 2016. So I was already married. I already lived in my own house. But I remember that when I decided that I wanted to get plastic surgery, like my mom was so mad at me that she stopped talking to me.
Yeah.
Like she didn't talk to me for months. Obviously, like now I understand, like she was just scared for me because I think at that point, we only knew someone, like actually knew someone, one person who had plastic surgery, who was like the pioneer for us, the first person who ever had surgery. But we didn't know anybody who in our close family who had surgery. So it was something that was really scary and it was something that was super new.
I feel like even within like larger society, like plastic surgery wasn't really talked about in 2016. Like it became a big boom later on. But at that point, I remember the only like plastic surgery people would talk about is like the Kardashians and Paris Hilton, like Botox and stuff like that. But I feel like actually getting like Brazilian butt lifts. Well, so Brazilian butt lifts are BBLs. It's where you take fat from the rest of your body and inject it into your butt. But I feel like that wasn't really talked about, even in social media at that point when you got your first surgery.
No, it was something that was extremely like new. And so I remember that when I chose to have surgery, I don't really remember what brought it on, honestly. Like it's just like the way that I am. And I think the way that we all are, once we get an idea in our head, there's no, going back like until we achieve it. And so I remember just thinking like, oh, I'll have this surgery and it'll just fix all my problems. Because like you said, we didn't know how to diet. We didn't know how to exercise. We didn't know how to achieve our goals the healthy way. It was just crash diets or like quick fixes. And so I thought like, I'll just get the surgery and it'll be like, it'll fix all my problems and it'll just get me, really skinny really quick. And I remember like that I had told my aunt, the one who lives in Mexico, I told her about it. And she was like, oh, like, yeah, that's so exciting. I actually know someone who had surgery with a surgeon that lives close to where she lives. So they're from like a really small town. I don't know if you can call it a town, but it's like this really small village. At the time, it was a village. Now it's a little bigger. And she's like, I know a doctor who does surgery close to here. You should talk to her and ask her about her experience. And so I was like, okay, yeah, it sounds like a plan. So I remember I met her at a Starbucks and and I didn't know this lady. I just like texted her one day. I was like, hey, I'm thinking of having surgery. Would you mind talking to me about your experience? And she was like very open. She was like, yeah, of course. So I met her at a Starbucks. And I just asked her about her experience and she looks really good. And so I didn't really give it much thought. I was like, I mean, also when you're young, you don't really think about those things. So I just thought, okay, yeah, like I'm going to do this. So I remember I had sent money to Mexico, not to the doctor that she had recommended to me, but I had just sent it to my cousin to hold on to the money for me so that when I got there, I could pay the money. And at the time, remember, I didn't have any money. We had no money. I mean, my husband was making like $600 a week and I only had like a part-time job. And so I actually took out an advance on a credit card.
You did not?
Yes. I took out money out of a credit card, like cash advance out of a credit card, $3,000 to get the surgery. So I got the money and then I sent it to Mexico to my cousin. So then a week before I was going to have the surgery, I was going to fly to Mexico and my aunt calls me and she was like, oh, the doctor who you were going to have your surgery with just did a surgery on one of my friends and she's dying. Like she is like
my God.
bedbound, like she can't move. She has like infections all over her body, wounds that won't heal, like skin that's dying that they need to cut off because like she has dead skin all over. Like she wasn't healing properly. Like it was scary. And my aunt was like, at that point, I think she was very excited for me. But when that happened, she was like, I don't want this on my hands.
Yeah.
So like, you better think about what you're doing.
At this point, did my mom stop talking to you?
No, no, this is when she stopped talking to me because I think that like my aunt telling me like this sounds really dangerous and then me being like, hey, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to happen. And my mom is like, are you kidding me? Like this lady's dying and like you're still going to have surgery. So like now in hindsight, I'm like, okay, like if my child
Yeah.
was going to have surgery with
I would
someone
lose it.
who just did surgery on someone who's dying, I could understand how that might be frustrating. But at the time, I was like, it's my life. I'm doing it. It's my money. Like, I can do whatever I want. And so I didn't really give it much thought. And my mom, you know, she went off on me. And I was like, fine, I don't care. I'm going to do what I want. And so I ended up flying to Mexico and I decided not to have surgery with that surgeon, but I already had my flight. I had already sent the money, not to the surgeon, but I had already sent the money to Mexico. And so I was like, I'm getting the surgery. So I flew to Mexico not knowing who I was going to have my surgery with.
Oh my gosh.
So then I get there and my mom's cousin picks me up from the airport and his wife had had her breast done a couple years before or something. So he picked me up from the airport and his wife told me, hey, I actually know a surgeon who did my surgery. If you want, I can set up a consultation and you can go and see if you like her work and kind of see if it's an option. I was like, okay, I guess, you know, I'm already here, so I need to make something happen. So I get there, and then that day we went to the doctor's office that she had recommended to me. And I meet with her and I tell her what I want. And she shows me pictures. And the pictures, honestly, they didn't look that good. And I was like, she was like, oh, it's just that like, I don't have that many pictures because I do a lot of surgeries for Americans and then I never see them again. And so I never know what their results look
Red
like
flag.
because I never like, but I mean, I didn't take it as a red flag. I took it more as like, she didn't have like any post-op pictures because then she never saw them again. Like they went back to the United States and then never came back. And so I kind of didn't, honestly, like I said, I was a kid. I didn't really care.
Yeah.
I was just kind of like, oh, it's not really like what I want, but at this point I'm already here, so might as well. So the doctor was like, okay, like, what do you think? And I was like, yeah, like, let's do it. And so then she was like,
my
okay,
God.
we're going to run some tests on you. And if everything I remember it was like a Monday. So she was like, we're going to run some tests on you. We'll get the results tomorrow, Tuesday. And if everything looks good, we'll do your operation on Wednesday.
Just what is this, a fast food service?
Yes, exactly, like a fast food service. So I was like, okay, sounds good. So I did that. I went, I got the test done. Everything came back good. And she's like, okay, cool. Put me on the books for Wednesday. And then I went and I had my surgery. And
that is insane.
It's insane behavior. Now
I always forget you had plastic surgery for the last time.
I mean, it's crazy to think, obviously, like now as a parent, I'm like, that is just like, if your daughter did that, I would lose my mind. But at the time, I didn't think anything of it. And that's the thing, like every time I've had plastic surgery, like I've never been afraid of dying. I'm not afraid that something's going to happen to me. I was afraid that the results weren't going to be what I wanted them to be. And so when I had surgery that first time, because it was something that was so new, there wasn't the resources that there is now. And so I got my surgery. I stayed in Mexico, I think, for like 2 weeks. And I came back and I don't think I ever saw results from that surgery.
Really?
Not because she didn't do a good job, because I remember coming back and my husband being like, oh my God, you're so skinny, you know, like, wow. But just because I gained the weight back so fast after that, I don't remember ever. That's probably why you don't remember that I had surgery.
Literally don't remember. I remember you having a fight with her mom, but I don't remember you coming back from surgery and looking different.
Yeah. Yeah, because I look
maybe
back
I was just young.
Well, I look back at pictures and that was in 2016.
That was 10 years ago.
That was 10 years ago. And like I said, I don't ever remember like enjoying the results. I don't remember, not that I didn't like it, not that the doctor didn't do a good job, because I think she did she did her job, what she was supposed to do. But there was never like, "Oh, you have to take care of yourself, make sure to
Yeah.
diet, make
Oh
sure
my
to
gosh, yeah.
exercise." Like, there was never anything of that. Like you said, it was like a fast food, come in, come out,
Yeah.
come get your surgery, and then I never heard anything about anything after that. I had my post-op massages in Mexico, and then I came back and I never had any more massages. I never took care of myself. So, of course, like, and as we know now, your body, it takes about 6 months to recover from
Yeah.
just the swelling. And so 6 months after my surgery, I had already gained the weight back. So by the time the swelling went down, I was back
Yeah.
in the same place I was before I had my surgery. And I mean, obviously that was like really sad, and I remember feeling like really upset about it because it's like I went through this whole thing. I got into a fight with my family over it. I spent this money that I didn't have to go have this surgery that it took me longer to recover from than the amount of time I had the results for. And so it was sad. So I think after that it was kind of like, oh, surgery doesn't work, you know?
Oh,
Like, surgery doesn't work, you
yeah.
know? But now it's really different. Now, like, it's so much more open and like there's so many more options and so many more things that you
Yeah.
can do. It's very different than the first time.
I also feel like now, obviously, like, if you wanna get plastic surgery, you can find someone in the world that's gonna do it. But I feel like now, the top surgeons, for example, in Mexico, they make you go through a lot before surgery. Like, you have to meet a certain weight limit. You have to, there's like a wait list. Like, there's no, "I'm meeting you on Monday, and Wednesday I'm
Yeah,
gonna do your surgery."
no.
And there's a lot of exams you have to do, post-op visits. Like, there's a lot that goes into it now. But
Yeah,
I remember back then, because you had your surgery in 2016.
right.
I had my surgery when I was 17 in 2019.
Okay.
And when I had my surgery, it was the same. Like, the technology hadn't evolved as much yet, and the guidelines were much less rigorous than they are now. So it was kind of like, "Okay, you want surgery? What do you want? Let's make it happen."
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't anything of like, "Oh, I was 17." Like, no one told me, "Oh, you're young, like, you should wait," or like, at 17, you're not even fully developed yet. And
Yeah.
so I had surgery before had even fully developed. And I remember the doctor, he was just like, "Oh, yeah, you're young. It'll be fine." And I only got like 2 blood tests done. And I, I went, met with him for an initial consultation. I told him what I wanted. I wanted to get a BBL and lipo. And he was like, "Okay, like, you're young, you're probably healthy. I'll just do a couple tests and then that's it." And he did blood work, and then I got my surgery, like, the next time I went to Mexico.
What was the thought process behind you having surgery so young?
I think for me, because I got my surgery, like, I think a year after my mom had plastic surgery, and it was with the same doctor. And honestly, all respect to this doctor, I think he was so professional, and I really loved the results. And for me, like, I saw my mom had plastic surgery, and I remember telling her that I was super self-conscious about my body, that, like, I didn't like my figure, that, like, I wanted a better figure, and I remember just always being really insecure about that. So, I told my mom, and I was under the impression that surgery would just fix it.
Yeah.
Like, surgery was gonna just fix everything, and I was never gonna have to think about it again, and all of my, like, body insecurities were just gonna go out the window,
Yeah.
and nothing was ever gonna happen again. And I remember at that point, I didn't obviously know the terminology, and I didn't know what was out there. My mom was, like, basically making the decisions for me.
Yeah.
So we went with the doctor, and I told the doctor why I wanted surgery, because I wanted a better figure, and he was like, "Okay, like, we can do that." So, initially, that was my thought process, was like, "Okay, I'm just gonna go get the surgery, and then I'm gonna recover, and then everything's gonna be fine." And so no one told me about maintaining the results with lifestyle. No one told me about the bruising and the massages and the drains, because I had 3 or 4 drains for that surgery. And I remember after the surgery, I really liked the outcome. I thought it was like a really nice result. And at that point, I hadn't had my breasts done. So it was just a BBL and lipo.
How long after you had your surgery did you see, like, the result? You're like, "Yes, I like this."
Honestly, for me, it was immediate. Like,
Oh,
I don't
okay.
know, I didn't really have that much swelling, maybe
Okay,
because I
good.
was so young, but
Yeah.
I don't know. And I had a lot of drains at that point. I had, like, 4 drains. I honestly like, the week after, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I love the results."
Yeah.
And I remember at that point, I was in high school. I was in high school when I had plastic surgery.
Wow.
Isn't that insane? So,
Did you get this done over the summer or something?
yes,
Oh, wow. So
I
summer before senior year?
yeah,
Okay.
the summer before senior year, I remember I went and I got my surgery done in July, and I had the 2 weeks of bed rest, and then it was the parties in the ranch that we're from. So I went to
Oh,
the parties
yeah.
with my faja shapewear on, and then I came back and I started high school again. I started my senior year,
Yeah.
and I remember I had my surgery, and going back to high school, everyone was like, "What happened to you?"
Oh my
Like, I remember at our high school, we had the senior floats. So, like, it was like the
Oh,
senior floats
yeah.
competition,
Mhm.
right, for homecoming. And I remember at the Spirit Week
Mhm.
before homecoming. So each day you had to dress up as something for Spirit Week. And at that point, I was in leadership, so we had to dress up. It was part of
Mhm.
our grade. And I remember one day the theme was reality shows. So our whole class did Keeping Up with the Kardashians. And I remember I was mortified. One of the girls was like, "Oh, Maria doesn't even need a butt
Oh my
pillow. She already has a big butt." And I was like, "Oh my God." Because at that point, like, imagine junior year, I was really flat. And then senior year, I come back and I have this big butt.
Do you think they knew, or did you ever tell anyone?
I never told anyone.
You would just, like, let them.
Squats all summer.
Such a liar.
I never told anyone. Like, I don't even think my best friend at that point knew that I had plastic surgery because we
Wow.
weren't that close yet.
Yeah.
So I just came back and I was like, "Yeah, look at me."
Yeah.
But I think that's why I liked the results more, because people were noticing and, like,
Yeah.
people were telling me, and, like, guys were hitting on me, and, like,
Yeah.
I noticed the difference because people were also noticing it.
Mhm.
So I think for me, that kinda gave me, like, the dopamine hit of, like, "Oh my gosh, this is working."
Yeah.
And then I remember at that point, I still had a really, really bad relationship with food. So I remember senior year, we have all of these activities and such. So I was going out a lot and I was drinking a lot and I was really not taking care of myself. So I started gaining all the weight back.
Mhm.
And I remember by the time I graduated, you couldn't even tell anymore that I had
Wow.
plastic
So
surgery.
less than a
Less
year.
than a year. I would say probably honestly like 6 months after. I looked exactly like I did before, except with a bigger butt. And I remember I was so disheartened. I was like, "Why is this happening to me? Like, isn't surgery supposed to be forever so I don't
Yeah.
have to maintain it? Like, what is happening?" And obviously, I was too ashamed to tell anyone. And I was like, "You know what? I'm just gonna act like nothing is happening." So I started like looking more towards food to really heal
Mhm.
that part that I was like really frustrated with myself. And then at that point, like looking back now, like at that point, I wasn't clicking like food is what's making me
Yeah.
look like this. And at that point, I didn't. I like honestly, genuinely just did not understand why that was happening. And I remember after that, I was like, okay, well, now I need another surgery because then that'll really fix it.
Yeah.
And then that's when everything else started happening that I had my next surgery.
So how long after your first surgery did you have your second surgery?
I had my first surgery at 17 and I had my neck surgery at 19.
Oh, so like 2 years
Yeah.
later.
But the neck surgery, I didn't have a BBL. I only had a breast augmentation and lipo. And I remember I always wanted to get my breasts done because that was something that I've always been really self-conscious about. For me, it wasn't the size, it was the fact that I had one breast bigger than the other.
Okay.
So for me, I was like, okay, I really, really want to get this fixed. And at that point, I still hadn't healed my relationship with food. So I'm 19 years old, getting another plastic surgery.
So I'm so curious, what was my mom's reaction when you told her you wanted to have another surgery?
She was so on board
Oh, wow.
because she was the one that took care of me in my first surgery. And I remember I had told my mom, like, I want to get my breasts done at 17. And she was like, no, I don't think you should do that because you're so young still. Like,
Mhm.
what if your breasts keep growing and then the results are like, aren't going to matter?
Yeah.
So I didn't end up getting it that time, but my mom was the one that had to shower me.
Yeah.
So at that point, she didn't know that one breast was bigger than the other. And so she was showering me and she was like, oh my gosh, like, you're right. Like,
Yeah.
one breast is bigger than the other. So she understood why I wanted it.
Yeah.
But at that point, I remember I didn't research any surgeons. It was kind of like my mom researched them
Mhm.
and it was whatever she wanted, we got.
Yeah.
So I didn't really have a choice of who we were
Yeah.
going with.
Well, to put it into context, she was paying for it, right?
Exactly. She
So,
was paying for it, so she was
yeah.
choosing where I was having it done. And also, she didn't want me to get it done in Guadalajara, where she would have to take care of me at the ranch. She wanted me to get it done on the beach so she could take care of me at her condo at the beach. So I didn't know any surgeons there. Like at that point, I had only researched surgeons in Guadalajara. So I was kind of just like going with the flow, like, okay, whoever you
Yeah.
find. And this surgeon went to school with the surgeon that did our surgery in Guadalajara. So
Uh-huh.
he, I guess, was like recommended
Right.
by the other surgeon that did my BBL. And, you know, my mom told me he was a great surgeon and I completely trusted that. So I go to the initial consultation and I tell the guy like that I want a breast augmentation and I want them to be even. That's basically all that I wanted. And he was like, okay, like we can totally do that. He didn't ask me how big I wanted them. Like he just told me,
Wow.
yeah, it was kind of like him deciding for me how big I'm
Yeah.
going to get, you know? And at that point, I didn't know I could even tell him how big I wanted them. I thought he was just going to do whatever was right for my body. And so I go in, it's like the day of surgery. I go in, he's like marking me and everything. And he shows me the implants. And I was like, oh my gosh, like those look really big. And I told him, I was like, those kind of look really big to me. And he's like, oh no, like it's what'll fit best with your body. And like, you know, and at that point I was 19. I didn't know
Yeah.
anything. So I remember he puts in the implants. I wake up the next day, like I didn't feel that bad because I didn't have a BBL. So BBLs are what hurt really bad because then you have to like lay on your butt
Yeah.
or you have like all of like the burning from the lipo. So at that point, the recovery wasn't really that bad. But I remember the next 2 or 3 days after the surgery, I take off the bandages and the bra and my breasts were enormous, like
Oh my gosh.
huge. Think of like I don't even know, like Ice-T's wife kind of big. Like they were huge. And I was like crying into my bathroom and I was like, oh my God, what did I do? Like these breasts are enormous. I didn't want them bigger. I wanted them even.
Yeah.
And this man just put whatever size implant he wanted in me. So I was like, okay, maybe it's just a swelling. I was like trying to reassure
Yeah.
myself. So I remember like a couple weeks after the swelling had gone down and one breast was still bigger than the other.
No.
Yes. I took off all the bandages. I had already done like the massages. I had already done I don't think I got drains in that time, but I had already done all the courses of massages that he wanted me to. I was already back in the
You got
States.
massages on your breasts?
Yeah.
Really?
It wasn't as vigorous as like BBL massagers.
Uh-huh.
It was kind of just like I did 2 massages with the post-op girl
Uh-huh.
and then I would just do them manually at home
Oh,
for
okay.
after that. Since there weren't any drains, like
Uh-huh.
what is she gonna
Yeah.
push out, you know? There wasn't any drains. So I remember I get home after all of that. At this point, it's like a month later. So I gave myself a month before I started freaking out. And at this point, I was in college. So I was still living a really unhealthy lifestyle. And I remember just looking at the mirror and seeing that they were still uneven. And I wanted to die. I was like, okay, so now I have bigger breasts that are still uneven. And at that point, I wanted him to fix my areolas too, because I always wanted like smaller areolas. So he was going to fix it. One areola was smaller than the other.
Oh no.
And I was freaking out. I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do now?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'm going to just wait a little bit more. So I wait another month before messaging him. I wait the month and the implants drop. And now they were sagging because the implants were too big for my body.
Yeah.
So the implants are now sagging, really heavy. So now my back hurts.
What size bra were you?
I
Do you
was
remember?
a triple D.
Oh, wow.
I was a triple D right after surgery with like the swelling and everything. And then I probably went down to like a double D, but I was still huge. Before I got the surgery, I was a B.
Wow.
Like
That's
just to put that in the context, A, B, C, D, double D. That's like 4 sizes bigger than what I used to be. So now I'm just very angry. And I told my mom, and I don't even tell her, I show her. I'm like, I need to show you
Yeah.
what this man did. And she was like, oh my God. And at that point, my mom had already had her breasts done.
Yeah.
And she was like, why do your breasts look like that? And I was like, I don't know. You tell me why they look like that.
Yeah.
And she was, like, really confused, didn't know why my implants had dropped, because my mom at that point, she had had her implants for, like, 4 years, and they looked great. Like,
Yeah.
to this day, they look great, and she got them, like, 13 years ago. And I was just freaking out. So I messaged the doctor. Oh, and at this point, my relationship with food got even worse because I was so depressed that my breasts looked this
Yeah.
bad. So I kept turning to food to comfort me. And so I messaged the doctor and I was like, okay, I don't like the results. These implants are sagging and I really think that they're too big for my body. And he was like, I don't think that they're too big for your body. He was like, I think your skin is just really elastic and that's why they fell. And I was like, okay, then why is one breast bigger than the other? I was like, that doesn't have anything to do with
Yeah.
it. And he was like, I think one breast just has more tissue than the other and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, wouldn't you know that before you did the surgery? Because
Yeah.
I went in for
A
a
consultation.
consultation and then a pre-op appointment. And then during the surgery, when you were marking me, wouldn't you have noticed that I had more breast tissue in one breast than the other? So he was like, you know what? I'm going to fix it for free. Like, just all you have to do is pay for the hospital costs. But my labor and my time is going to be free. And I remember telling my mom, like, I don't trust this man. I don't think that he knows what he's doing. I really want to go with another surgeon. And she was like, yeah, but if you go with another surgeon, like they're gonna charge you everything from the very beginning. And this guy is not gonna charge you the like his time, like basically telling me, let's just have him fix it.
But I mean, like, you still have to take your time
Yeah,
and go to Mexico and
exactly.
stay there and all of that.
And like all of this was happening while I was in college. So like I had to go spend my summers between college in Mexico trying to get this surgery fixed.
Yeah.
So anyway, I told the surgeon that I want to get it fixed. And I was very, very, very hesitant to go back to him, but as you said, my mom was paying for it,
Yeah.
so I had to go wherever she wanted. So I go back to this guy again, and I remember just like breaking down in tears in his office, and I was like, "Is this ever gonna look the way I want it to, or am I just wasting my money and time and energy going through a surgery if it's not gonna be how I want it?" And he was like, "Well, the next surgery is gonna fix it." And I'm like, "You shouldn't." Looking back now, you
Yeah,
shouldn't be
yeah, like,
promising
you
that.
shouldn't be promising
But
things.
he was like, "This surgery is gonna fix everything, and we're really gonna, like, make sure the breasts are even and everything." At this point, his he was charging me for the hospital bills because he was gonna use the same implant. So he didn't have to get another implant, right? So I tell him, "I think this implant is too big for my body." I tell him again. And he was like, "No, the implants aren't the problem. The problem is your breast tissue." Me being at this point, when I got my surgery again, I was 20. It was a year after.
Do you know how much he charged you the first time?
So my first BBL was 5,000. The breast augmentation and lipo was 6,500. The third time, it was just to get my breasts fixed. So he said it was a lift and a rebuild. He was gonna fix my areolas. He was gonna out the breasts. And that was $3,000.
But he was using the same
But he
implant.
was using the same implant. He said, if you want me to use another implant, I'm gonna have to charge you like a brand new surgery because you're getting a new implant. And at this point, my first surgery, I only had a very tiny scar from my first augmentation. Like I had a very tiny scar under my breasts. So you couldn't really tell because it was under your breasts. And the second time, he was like, okay, the scar is gonna be a little bigger. And I was like, okay, like that's fine. He didn't tell me how big. He
Just a
just said it was
little
a little
bigger.
bigger. So I'm in surgery, worst feeling ever. Like I knew in the bottom of my stomach, I was like, this is not
Yeah.
gonna turn out the way I want it. I get out of surgery and I told my mom, oh my gosh, how do they look? And she was like, well, yeah, they looked pretty good from what he showed me. So I wait. I was like terrified to take off the bra and the wrapping. I was like, I'm just gonna wait. I'm just gonna wait and see.
Yeah.
So like 2 or 3 days later, I get I take off the wrapping. This one hurt 1,000 times more
Yeah, I
than my
remember you
first breast
telling me
surgery.
that.
Like I thought I was dying, and I didn't know why. I was like, "Why did the first one not hurt as much?" And it was because
It was because of the lift,
he
right?
it was a lift, and he did
Yeah.
a T, incision. So, a T incision is when it starts at the bottom of your areola, goes down to your under boob, and then all
All the way,
around
yeah.
breast. And I thought I was gonna die. That hurt so bad. That hurt for me, that hurt
Yeah.
more than getting lipo. Like, that hurt really, really,
Well,
really
they're
bad.
cutting you. They're basically hashing you
Yeah.
all your breast.
So, it was like a horrible scar, and it was enormous. Like, my entire breast was just a scar. And from the day I got the implants, I absolutely hated the results. They looked worse than the first time I got them. They were still lopsided, just with a bigger scar that was my entire breast. And then on one of my breasts, the stitches opened. So I had an infection, and that left like my scar even worse because now in one of my breasts, at the middle of the scar, it's just like a big hole that just healed like a circle. So it's just like, it looks horrible. And I was just so, so, so sad. I was like, I'm never doing this again. Like, I was traumatized after that. And I remember my breasts not even 2 weeks later started sagging. So at that point, because he had blamed my first sagging because I had gained weight. And I was
Uh-huh.
like, okay, maybe that's what happened.
Yeah.
The second time, they were sagging 2 weeks later. I was like, there is no way that I gained enough weight in 2 weeks for my breasts to
Yeah.
sag. So I was just so mad. And I messaged the doctor and I told him that he did a horrible job. And I remember I was pissed.
Yeah.
Mom was like, don't do it. And I was like, no, I'm going to do it.
I'm never gonna see this man again.
Exactly. I was like, what do I have to lose? So I messaged this guy and I was like, my breasts look horrible and you did not do a good job. You shouldn't be practicing plastic surgery. And I remember at that time, the assistant answered me and she was like, oh, we want to have you in for like a post-op consultation. And I was like, I will never set foot in your office again. And I was like, I know that these implants are too big for my body. And you all are trying to convince me they're not because you don't want to go through the hassle of getting
Yeah.
another set of implants. So at the end, the doctor like was basically told me if I want to get it fixed, he'll do it again. And I was like, no.
You think I'm gonna go back to you for a third time?
I was like, you know what? Fool me once, fool like shame on me. Fool me twice, I'm just stupid at that point. And I just told him, you know what? I will never be looking for your services again. And you are not highly recommended in my book. And I was just so mad. And that's how, like, that was what, like 3 years ago,
That
4 years
was
ago?
only 3 years
Yeah,
ago.
only like 3 years ago, maximum 4 years ago. And after that, I was really just turned off to getting surgery. I was like, if I'm just going to keep looking bad, I don't even want to go through this. And I remember being so frustrated because my mom had gotten implants and they
Yeah.
looked amazing and hers didn't sag at all. And then mine 2 weeks later were sagging. Like, that didn't make any sense. And I remember our aunt also got plastic surgery and she told my mom that her breasts were sagging too. So I was like, it has to be something
Yeah.
in our skin. And I was like, if I ever get plastic surgery again, I'm getting every test in the book.
Yeah.
I was like, I want to get every test that's out there. But yeah, that's where I am today with plastic
Did you ever consider just taking out the implant like before you went back for your second for him to fix it? Did you think about like I'm just gonna take out the implant and just get the lift and not deal with the implant?
Well, I didn't know that was an option.
Oh, okay.
Like, I remember telling the doctor that I felt that the implants were too big, but he never made that an option of like, oh, I can just like reconstruct your breasts.
Yeah.
Because I remember like hindsight 2020, I never told him I wanted them bigger.
Yeah.
I just told him I wanted them even.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I'm like, why wouldn't you just offer me a lift?
Yeah, from the beginning.
And like rebuild from the beginning.
Yeah.
And not like the implants, But I never even thought that was an option. I just thought I had to get the breast implants for my breasts to be even.
Yeah, that's so scary. So do you ever think you'll have surgery again?
I think I will after much research and a lot of consultations. I will, but I think I'll be removing my implants. I
You
don't
will.
think I'm going to be doing implants. At this point, if they're going to sag, I'd rather them sag without the added weight of an implant and just, take
Yeah.
gravity can take its course. I don't
Do
even
the
know.
implants bother you or is it just that they don't look good?
Honestly, at the beginning, they were really bothersome because I'm a stomach sleeper,
Oh, yeah.
and you can't sleep on your stomach for a really long time after having implants. Another thing they don't tell you.
Yeah.
But I couldn't sleep on my stomach for like 2 years. And I remember when I would wear like something tight, I felt like my implants were gonna like pop.
Oh.
I felt super suffocated. And when would lay down on my back, my body wasn't used to the weight. So I felt
Mhm.
like my implants were like crushing me.
Yeah.
But I mean, you end up getting used to it. But now that I can sleep on my stomach, sometimes I'll lay down and I'll lay on my breast implant wrong and I feel it like move
Oh my
and it
gosh.
hurts. It's like, doesn't hurt. It like feels weird. Like it
Yeah.
feels like itchy inside of your breast and my implant will like move or something. And those are the things that I'm just like want to put behind me because obviously like everyone that gets implants takes it differently and everyone adapts to implants differently. But I think for me personally, I don't see the reward
Yeah.
with the outcome that I got.
Well, it's crazy because that same person who took me to that doctor that I first had my surgery with, she had breast implants and she almost died. She was allergic to the
Oh my
implants and she was
gosh.
hospitalized for like 3 weeks. And the doctor told her, like, if you don't get better, we're gonna have to take out the implants because your body is just rejecting them. I
Oh
mean,
my god.
at the end, her body got used to it, but I remember she was hospitalized for a long time, and the doctor was like, and that's the thing, like you don't know until you go into surgery and have the
Yeah.
surgery if you're allergic or not, and then it's like by that point you go through all of this just to have them taken out, and I'm like, that is so scary.
It's actually terrifying. I remember when my second my second breast augmentation that I got the infection, I was so scared because at that point I was already back in the US.
Oh wow.
So I was like, okay, what do I do? I like am so terrified. And I remember telling my mom and I sent her pictures and I showed her and she was like, oh my gosh, we need to take you to the ER. So I ended up going to urgent care and telling them like there's like pus coming out of my breast and I don't know what to do. And I was so mortified because they asked me what happened, and I was like, "I got plastic surgery." And then they were like, "We don't see plastic surgery on your Kaiser record." And I was like, "I got it done in Mexico."
Well, it's so funny because I think for the longest time, even now, like when doctors, like when I go to get my physical, and they're like, "Oh, have you ever had surgery?" And I'm embarrassed to
Yeah,
say, like, "Oh, yeah, I had surgery in Mexico," because there's so much stigma
so
around like
much.
having surgery in a foreign country. And I remember my mom, she had had an infection, I think, and she went to her doctor and she had to like fess up and tell them. And then her doctor told her, like, scolded her and was like, you have to be honest with your doctors. Like, if you got surgery here or in Taiwan, like, there's nothing wrong with that, but you can't lie to your
Yeah.
doctor. Like, we are here to take care of you, whether you got surgery here or somewhere else. Like, that is our job to take care of you. So if you're not honest, we can't take care of you. So it's like, why do I have to lie to the doctor? Why do they care if I had plastic surgery or not?
But honestly, like, some will look
No,
down on you for it.
some will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I remember
I
being
feel like a
there.
lot of people have the stigma still.
Yeah, and honestly, I feel like people think that having surgery in Latin America is the worst thing ever. But my mom had plastic surgery here and it was a scam.
They
Like they
botched
robbed
her.
her
Yeah.
and she ended up paying like a bunch of money to this plastic surgeon who I don't even think was a plastic surgeon and gave her horrible results, didn't recommend having any massages, didn't give her any antibiotics. So you tell me, is that worse than getting
Yeah.
surgery in
Yeah.
Latin America?
I think that the stigma comes from like when you say you got surgery in Mexico, they think you went to like Tijuana and
Yeah.
like someone's basement and
Yeah.
like that's what people think, but you don't think like, yeah, there is like surgeons who are professional and who do a good job and actually, take their job seriously. But I think it just all goes to, like you said, research. Like you have to research and you have to investigate and ask the questions because if you just go like I kind of joke with my husband, like in Mexico, there's probably like more quote unquote plastic surgeons than any other
Yeah.
profession. Because if you're looking to scam someone, it's a good way to make a quick buck because you can post like someone else's pictures. You can post results that are, artificial intelligence that
Yeah.
aren't the real results and people will they'll believe it. So you have to be super
Yeah.
careful.
Well, speaking about research, How did you go about getting your second surgery? I remember you researched the heck out of it.
Well, I mean, it was really difficult for me because, so I think that when I had my first son, I always had the idea that I wanted to have surgery once I was finished having kids. And so when I had my first son, I kind of was thinking like, okay, like, should I have, because I really wanted a breast reduction, like really bad. Like
Yeah.
that was something that I needed, not so much that
Yeah.
I wanted. And so after I had my first son, I was like, should I just get the breast reduction now? Like, I really don't want to deal with this. But then my husband and I talked about it and we're like, you know what? Maybe it's just better if I just finish having kids and I only have to deal with it once. So for me, it was kind of like something that I always looked forward to. Like, okay, once I have, looking at it as like the grass is going to be greener on the other side. Like,
Mm-hmm.
one day I'm going to have my two kids and then I'm going to have surgery and I'm going to look amazing and I'm going to be so happy and so self-confident. And I always looked forward to that. And so when I decided to have my second son, I was super excited about just closing that chapter of my life and just being like, I have my two kids and I just know that my family's complete and I can just kind of move on with my life knowing that this is the life that I'm going to have,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so I remember when I had my second son, literally like 2 months later, I was already messaging doctors. Like,
Oh my
oh, yeah, I was
gosh.
already messaging doctors being like, okay, like I want a surgery because like I'm definitely a person who like goes about things with a plan. And so I, um, I had this plan that like my son was born in September and I always, I'm a tax preparer. So my busiest season is between January and May. And so I was thinking, okay, over the summer, I'll get my surgery. Like passing the busy season,
Mm-hmm.
I'll save all my money. I'll save for it. And then I'll have my surgery like basically as soon as possible, which
Yeah.
for me was over the summer once my busy season ended.
Didn't the doctor say you had to wait a year postpartum or two?
No, actually, they told me that I had to wait 6 months,
Mm.
but I had messaged. Like, the thing is, I was very frustrated because I don't have Instagram. So
Mm.
it was really hard for me to research doctors because all their results are posted on
Yeah.
Instagram. And so I remember that every single day from like September to December, I would wait for my husband to come home and then I would take his phone for 20 minutes. And every day for 20 minutes, I would just go on Instagram and look at doctors and look at doctors. But like I said in our last episode, like it was frustrating because I couldn't find anything that I wanted. It was like
Yeah.
I was only seeing the most exaggerated results on Instagram and it wasn't anything that I wanted. So there was a doctor that even back when I had my surgery in 2016, I wanted to go with him. And I always followed his work. Ever since 2016, I've been following his work. And I'm like in love. Like I've always loved his work. But obviously, like, it was very expensive then, and so I never really looked into it,
Mhm.
and I have the messages, I'll see because I have the messages back when I messaged him, like, back in
No
2016 to see how
way.
much, like, the operation was, and it was, like, 1/10 of what it costs now, but, um, I never, like, thought that that was possible, and so I remember I messaged him, which was, like, my number one choice, and then somebody in my life recommended another doctor to me, and then the doctor where you had your first surgery was, so it
Mm.
was those
Yeah.
3. It was the one I wanted, the one you had your surgery, and another one that was recommended to me, and so I spoke to the guy that was recommended to me, and yeah, like, he was cool, like, I mean, it I got a feeling that he, like, kind of understood, like, where I was coming from and what I wanted, and he sent me a price that sounded reasonable, but then it's like, I still had a lot of fear because I was like, "I
Yeah.
don't know him, I don't know anyone who's had his surgery with him," and that was something that I was really scared of because, like I said, I was never afraid of something bad happening to me. I was afraid of going through this whole process and then not looking the way that I wanted to because at this point, it was something that I've been wanting since 2016. And so it's like years that I've been wanting this, that I've been hyping it up for so much that I was scared to do it with some random surgeon and then not look good. And so then I ended up going to Mexico and I met with your doctor in person.
Mhm.
And yeah, it also seemed like he understood what I wanted. And he recommended that I only get lipo. And the other 2 doctors had recommended that I get a tummy tuck. And so I was
Mhm.
kind of like feeling weird about that.
Yeah.
And so then I messaged my number one choice doctor, and I remember I messaged him about 2 or 3 months when I postpartum, 2 or 3 months postpartum, and he told me, "I can't give you a consultation until you're a minimum of 6 months postpartum."
Mm.
And so at that point, I felt a little defeated because I was like, "Well, I need to know how much this is gonna cost so that I know how
Yeah.
much money I need to save." What if you tell me it's X amount of money and I can't, because I think at the 6-month mark, it was gonna be April, and I wanted to have my surgery in June. So it's like, I'm not gonna have time to plan
Yeah.
if you're not giving me a quote until April. And so I just felt kind of defeated, and I was like, you know what? Forget it. So I ended up going with your doctor, and I think that was the one that was the better choice for me because I saw my mom and I saw how amazing she looked, and
Yeah.
I was like, well, and we had a couple people in our family who had surgery
He's a
with him.
great surgeon, to be
So
honest.
I felt like, okay, I trust him,
Yeah.
And so I kind of decided that, but he charged me for the consultation, but he didn't take any money from me. I didn't send him any money. I just made the appointment for the surgery for June, but he didn't ask me for a deposit. He didn't ask me for anything. I just paid for the consultation. So that was kind of my plan. Like, I went to Mexico in December, and I had planned to have my surgery in June with him. So I had that all squared away. I knew how much it was going to cost. I think he was going to charge me like $16,000 for the breast lift with the implant and lipo. He was gonna charge me $16,000. And so I was kinda like, "Okay, like, I guess that's how much it cost."
$16,000?
$16,000 was the price that he gave me. So I was kinda like, "Okay, like, that's a plan." So I had some saving to do. I came back, I worked, I saved all this money, and then, um so then I came back and I worked. So then I came back, and then I'm working away. And then in April, the number one doctor that I wanted to go to messaged me, and he was like, "Hey, I saw that you inquired a couple of months ago, and I see that you're like now 6 months postpartum, and we can still give you a quote if that's what you want." And I thought that was so sweet. I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh my gosh, like they kept me on their radar,
Yeah.
like at first I felt kind of like sad because I felt like they just kind of dismissed me.
Mhm.
And honestly, I'll talk about this a little later, but at the time I was very frustrated. I was like, why do you care? Like,
Yeah.
just give me a price. Like, what do you care if and at that point you kind of realize like it wouldn't have hurt him to just take my money
Yeah.
and to just give me a proposal and just be like, oh yeah, like here, this is what it's going to cost you. But he is an ethical person, which I came to learn that he's a very ethical person. And he wasn't just going to take my money because he charges for his consultations. And so he was like, no, I cannot give you a fair consultation right now, so I'm not going to take your
Yeah.
money. And he's a doctor who has a lot, he has a lot of followers on Instagram. He does a lot of surgeries for influencers. So I always kind of had this image of my head that he was like a rude. Like I was like, he's going to be
Yeah.
rude. He's going to be kind of full of
Little
himself. He's like
arrogant.
not going to take me seriously. He's going to just see me as like a price tag and like kind of like a fast food, like, oh, one in, one out,
Mhm.
just trying to get as much money from these people as possible. So that's kind of the image I had of him in my head. So when he said that to me, I kind of felt like he was just dismissing me. But he was a dream. Like for me, he was a
Yeah.
dream. And my aunt knew a lot of people who had surgery with him. And even for him to take you as a patient is like a whole nother thing because he tells people like he does not do surgery on people who are overweight. He does not do surgery on people who are not healthy or who have medical problems. Like he chooses his patients.
He's picky.
Like he's super picky about his patients. And I see like, cause I obviously did a lot of research on him and I would see all his Google reviews. And all of his reviews were like people pissed off because his requirements for his patients are just on another level of high. Like they're so high. And so all of his reviews are like people being pissed off because he is really demanding about what he asks for his patients. And so my aunt, she's so funny. She was kind of living through me. She's like, yes, I mean, if you can, like, cause I had asked her, she had surgery before. And I asked her, she's like, honestly, if he'll take you on as a patient, that's not even a question. Like you should
Oh.
go with him because I've seen his work. Like she
Yeah.
knows people who have had surgery with him. And I was like, okay. But at that point, like I said, I kind of had taken that like dream out of my head because I didn't
Mhm.
think it was possible. So I sent him my pictures in April. I sent him all my information, all my pictures, everything. And he sent me, because he charges for his consultation. So he sent me back a proposal. I remember I was sitting at Laser Away waiting because I had laser hair removal, and I was sitting in the waiting room when I got the email, and I almost like passed out because I could not believe the price that I was seeing. Like in that moment, I remember being like, this, it's impossible. Like, I'm never going to be able to pay that.
Yeah.
And at the time when I converted it, it was like $22,000 for the surgery, but he was going to do the tummy tuck. So
And the other one wasn't.
no, no. So then I was kind of like, his price isn't that like unfair,
Yeah.
because if the other surgeon was going to charge me $16,000 for just the lipo, see my breast, and this doctor's going to do a tummy tuck, it kind of was like,
Yeah.
the price was right. Like, it felt like it was a fair price. Obviously, like, it's a lot of money, but in that moment, I just thought, there's no way I'm going to be able to save that much money. And I just kind of thought that it was impossible. And then I came home and I told my husband, and he almost fell back in his chair when I told him. He's like, he's crazy. That's so much money. And I was like, yeah. But then over the next few weeks, we talked about it a lot. And I just thought, like, what if I go with your doctor and I don't like the results, and I spend $16,000 to get a result that I'm not happy with, and then I'm $16,000 out and unhappy. So then I kind of weighed the pros and cons, and I was like, you know what? Like, I think that for the place I am in my life right now and how long I've been waiting for this, I would rather just spend the extra money to go with the doctor that I want to go to. So if anything goes wrong, I can be like, well, that's what I wanted, instead of it's kind of what I wanted,
Yeah.
And so I just figured, like, okay, like, I'm just gonna, I'm just gonna set that goal for myself, and I'm gonna do it. So then I ended up agreeing to the proposal, and I told him, like, okay, like, I want to move forward. What do you need from me? So he sent me like a whole list of tests that I need to get done. And so I remember I went to Mexico in about April to go get the April or May. I went in April or May, and I wasn't going to have surgery until August. So I went to Mexico to get all the tests done that I needed to get done. And I remember I was like there spending like thousands of dollars to just to get the test done. And then I remember I sent them all to him, and then I was packing to come back, and he was like, oh, one of your tests came back a little irregular. We're going to need you to do more tests.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And I was so frustrated at that point. I was like, I already spent all this money to come out here and to get all these tests done. And I was just like, I felt so defeated, because I was like, this is just too much. Like, I understand you being cautious, but this is just like way too much. So in that moment, I felt like maybe this isn't going to happen, because I just feel like this is way too much for me. So then I kind of left it like that. And I was like, well, I'm leaving, so this is going to have to be for a different time, that I don't have to deal with this. So it ended up working out that we went back in July. And so I went to July, and then I spent more thousands of or hundreds of dollars to get more tests done. So then I finally and by this point, I hadn't even met the doctor yet.
Oh my gosh.
So this was all just via his coordinator. And so finally in July, when I went back to do the second round of tests, is when I told his the coordinator, I told her, like, I'm gonna be there. And this was in July, and I was gonna have surgery in August. Supposedly at this point, I didn't even know if he was gonna do surgery on me, because he hadn't even approved me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I go in July, and I get the last round of tests, and I meet him finally. And so I meet him, and he's super nice. And, he's very, he's listening to me, listening to what I want. And I'm telling him about my concerns and all this stuff. And he's checking me out, and he just looks at me. He's so funny. He makes me take off all my clothes, and then he starts pointing out things in my body that are wrong. So he's like, oh, this shoulder is a little bit higher than this shoulder, and you have slight scoliosis, and this bone and that bone. And at the end, after he's nitpicking everything that's wrong with me, he's like, I only do this to point out that I'm not God. And there are things that I can't change. I can't change your bones. I can't change the structure of your bones. That's not something I can do. I can change the outside, to make it look, I can like tweak it to make it look proportional, but it's never going to be proportional.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't want you to think that I'm God and that I can change the structure of your body because I can't.
Oh my.
And I think it's just goes to the point that he's like being honest
Yeah.
about these are the things that I cannot fix. And these are things that I can't fix. So if you want to go forward with this, we can, but I just want you to know that you're never going to look perfect.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and at that moment I was like, you're lying. You're just trying to psych me out. And I didn't take his words to have any value because I thought he was just kind of trying to save his butt
Yeah.
and, you know, just in case anything went wrong. And so I'm explaining everything to him and he's super nice and everything ended up working out. So then I flew back in.
At this point, did he tell you? Because I remember you told me you had to lose a little bit of weight before surgery, right? Is this the
Yes.
point where he told you?
Yeah. So no, actually, when I sent all my information the very first time to the coordinator, she told me that I had to. She told me that I had to be at 27 BMI and I had to lose 10 pounds because, like I said, he didn't do.
Yeah.
He said he doesn't. The way he puts it is he does surgery on overweight people, not obese people. So for him, anything above 27 BMI is he doesn't do surgery because he's like it's very dangerous. And at the time, I was like, but that's your job, right? Like, why am I going to lose weight to have plastic surgery?
Mhm.
That doesn't make any sense. I'm having plastic surgery so that I don't have to lose weight.
Yeah.
But now I see a lot of value in that because it's like he is going to do lipo and take out the fat and all this other stuff. But you still have to like, and that's kind of what like I thought was sad to me is like I understood 100% where he was coming from because there is a value in like losing the weight and getting like around the place you want to be because if not you have like all these weird things that happen to your body, like all these weird things that he could fix if you lose the weight, but once you have the surgery and you lose the weight after, he can't fix, right? So there is a lot of value in that. And so at this point, I had all my tests done. I submitted them. It was like a month before my surgery when he finally approved me. And
Oh my
like,
gosh.
at this point, so then he approved me and I bought I paid for the Airbnb. I bought my flight, everything. And so I never took any maternity leave when I had my son. So I saved all my maternity leave so that I could use it for having the surgery. So I went to Mexico for like a month and had my surgery and used my time off to stay in Mexico and have my surgery. And at this point, my son was only 9 months old.
That is crazy.
It's crazy.
You
like
are brave.
I know. And I remember after I had my surgery and I was just like, I thought I was going to die. And my aunt was like, well, yeah, like your body internally still hasn't healed yet.
Yeah.
And you just went and you like had the surgery adding more strain on your body. Like, of course it's going to take, like you're still healing from having a baby and now you're healing from having surgery. And so I remember like I went to Mexico. My mom came out and for a week to help me and my husband. I took my kids. My sister lived in Mexico at the time, so she was there to help me. So everyone really like showed up for me and like came and like this was a whole thing. Like this wasn't just like a decision that I make. It was like my husband had to like be there for a month. My mom had to be there for a week. I had to take my kids. Like it was a whole thing.
And the nanny.
And then we had to hire a nanny to help us because I was going to have this ginormous surgery. And the doctor, I remember him telling me like, this is a huge commitment. Like this is going to hurt. You're going to be in recovery for a really long time. He was very brutally honest about what it was going to be. And I just didn't believe him. I just chose to not believe him. And so I remember the day of the surgery, like I was so excited and he had me send a picture of like ideally what I would want to look like. And at this point, like that was the hardest thing because I didn't know at that point still. I still hadn't found something that I was like, that's what I want. And so I had to scroll back to like 2019 on his Instagram to find something that I'm like, okay, that's what I want. I remember when I got to Mexico, when I was going to have my surgery, I got to Mexico and I messaged the coordinator and I was like, hey, because I speak Spanish, but I speak American Spanish. There's still like, if a doctor's talking at me, there's like, they're talking at me so fast, I don't understand.
And we don't speak medical Spanish.
Yeah, we don't speak like the proper Spanish. And so I remember getting to Mexico and feeling like he isn't understanding because something that I had a lot of like fear on was my breast because I was so unhappy at the time with my breast that I was scared that what happened to you was going to happen to me.
Yeah.
And so I was so scared that we weren't understanding each other in what I wanted. Like, I do not want big breasts at all. Like, the smaller, the better. And that's what I told him, like, my exact words were, I do not care about the size. I don't want them to sag. So if you need to make them an A, make them an A, but
Mhm.
I don't want them to sag. So please just keep that in mind. And so I remember that he told me when he was measuring me, he was measuring my breast, and he said that usually like a woman has like 5 centimeters of sag in their breast. I had 15.
Damn.
15 centimeters of sag. And so he's like, this is going to take a lot of work for me to like, and he was telling me like all about it. Like, he has to like go in there and do the lift and reconnect all the vessels so that they don't sag, right? So everything stays where it's supposed to be. And so I remember getting to Mexico and feeling like, I don't think he understood what I'm saying, because at that point I was still planning to get an implant. So I was planning to get a breast reduction and then get an implant so that they looked round.
Yeah.
And I remember telling him that, and he laughed, and he's like, that is such a misconception. He's like, that's not true. Like, all an implant does is add volume. It doesn't add shape. He's like, the shape is what I do. I do go in there and do the shape. The implant's only going to add volume. And I was like, no, I don't want
I don't want
volume.
volume.
I was like, I want this. And we're not understanding each other. He's trying to tell me, and I'm like, no, you're wrong. I know you're the doctor, but you're wrong. I know. And so I felt really like uneasy. So I remember I messaged the coordinator. I was like, I still am feeling a little apprehensive about the breast situation. And she was like, okay, that's fine. If you're feeling apprehensive, we'll set up an appointment, come to the doctor so you guys can talk in person, so you guys can understand each other. And I thought that was so like nice of them to just be like, they took my concerns seriously. And so I remember I went in there and I was talking to him, and I told him like my concerns. And I told him all this stuff, and he's like, yeah, like, he's like, I'm gonna work my best, but he's like, honestly, like, your breasts are way too heavy to sustain an implant. If you do go with an implant, the possibility of them sagging is so much bigger. So I would really think about it. And I'm like, we've been over this. You don't know what you're talking about. I still am just like, no. So then I think that day I was kind of like, and he was so sweet. And until this day, I have so much love for him because he had so much empathy with me and so much patience. So then I told him, but I'm not sure. Like, I want the shape, but I don't want the weight. And I want them to be shapely, but I don't want them to be big. And I didn't even know. Honestly, I didn't even know what I wanted.
Mhm.
And so I remember he just put his hand on my shoulder. He's like, let's do this. We won't put the implant. And if you want the implant later, I'll put it in for you. And I was like, okay, let's do it. So I felt like we were maybe still not understanding each other, but at least like he was trying to do what was best for me, kind of trying to push me into the right direction.
Uh-huh.
And so I go in the day of my surgery, and he's like marking me up, and he's like, and he still took the time that day to tell me like, okay, I saw the picture you sent. Tell me what it is you like about that picture. What is it about that picture that you want to see on your body? Like, he still took it a step further to understand like, what is it that you want? And so, we talked, and then he grabbed me by the hands, and he was like, I promise you that I'm gonna do everything in my power to give you the results that you want. And I was like, oh my God, I wanted to cry because I felt like he was not the person I thought he was.
Yeah.
Like, I thought that he was gonna be so stuck up, and he was like gonna kind of feel like I'm beneath him, or like I don't deserve his time or something.
Typical doctor feeling.
Typical doctor, but no, he was so sweet. And I definitely felt, although I went through so much trying to get all the results and all the exams and all the tests to try to, get him to even do the surgery on me. And I was so frustrated. But I definitely went into that surgery feeling like he's going to keep me alive. He's going to do everything in his power to keep me alive. And I think that, like, especially if you have kids, that's a feeling, that's something you want to feel, because I'm like, I'm still a mom, and I don't want to leave my kids without a mom. And so it was a fear. Like, things go wrong in surgery all the time, but I felt like at that point he had done his due diligence, and I felt like he had done everything in his power to rule out anything that could possibly happen to me in surgery. And so I felt safe. And so I remember I got out of surgery, and
Before we talk about the results, before you had the surgery, did he ever talk to you about like lifestyle changes, about like diet, exercise, mental health? Did he ever talk to you about anything
Oh,
like that?
yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Yes, I remember from the very first day when I had my first consultation with him, he looked me right in my eyes and he's like, "You need to change your life. You are going to have to change your life." He's like, "This is not a quick fix. This is gonna be a lifelong commitment that you're making to yourself." He's like, "Your results are not gonna last if you don't do diet and exercise for the rest of your life." And he was very honest about that from the very beginning. And he told me, he was like, you know, I see people who come in here and do their surgery. He tells me, he's like, people don't take this commitment seriously, and I see it every day.
Yeah.
He was like, if you don't take care of yourself, your results will not last. And he was very honest to me about that, about changing my life, about being a long time commitment, about how much it was going to hurt, about how much, the healing. He was like, he said, he literally used the word in English, ginormous surgery. He used that word in English. He's like, this is a ginormous surgery. And and it's gonna hurt and it's gonna be really painful. And he told me, you need to have a support system because this is gonna be a really long road. And he's like, and this is it. And he told me, he's like, this isn't just something that's gonna affect you, it's gonna affect your husband too, because he's gonna have to help you. And so I do feel like he was just so responsible about laying it all out
Mhm.
there. And I think that as the patient, I didn't believe him, and I just thought, like, come on, let's get to the good part.
Yeah.
How good am I gonna look? Or like, how am I gonna look after the surgery? Like, I didn't even want to listen to what he had to say because I just wanted to get to the other side.
Mhm.
And so when I had my surgery and I got out of surgery, and I went home or back to the Airbnb, and I was in so much pain because I had a tummy tuck. So I had a gash all the way across my stomach, literally from one hip to the other.
Mhm.
I had a BBL, so I had drains coming out of everywhere. I had a breast lift. So like you said, you have the T on both breasts that are like hashed. So literally my entire body was just like hashed.
Slashed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
slashed. The slashing slasher. It was all slashed and like I was walking like with a hunchback because I couldn't even stand up
Yeah, I
straight.
remember.
Like I was a miserable. And I remember like getting out of surgery and the doctor came into the room and again reiterated, you have to take care of yourself. You have to be careful, all this stuff. But at that point, when I got out of surgery, he told me, okay, for the next 6 weeks, you can eat whatever you want. You can eat anything that you want.
I like that diet.
Because your body lost, so much. And in order to keep your body like from not getting an infection, you need to feed your body so you can have whatever you want for the next 6 weeks. And after the 6 weeks is when you have to start really taking care of yourself and do your diet. But for the next 6 weeks, I want you to eat really well and take care of yourself. And he gave me all the indications. So I went back, and I was like, I could barely even move. Like, I needed help taking a shower. I needed help getting up. I needed help, like, doing everything.
How was it for you to be in like that vulnerable state of needing people's help?
It was horrible. And I think, like, obviously, we're people who don't ask for help and who
Mhm.
don't like to ask for help. And so it was really hard because, like, imagine, like, we were staying in an apartment. We had the nanny, my 2 kids, my husband, my mom, and my sister all there taking care of me and taking care of my 2 kids. My son was he was like about 3,
Mhm.
almost 3, and my other son was 9 months old. So I mean, this was a whole like family
Yeah.
commitment, and so it was really hard to have someone have to shower me and like my mom had to like come in and see me naked and help me clean up all my wounds and make sure that they're dry and that I'm putting everything and then I'm taking all this medication. So it was like just the surgery was $22,000 and then plus the medication that I needed to take. Like I had to take 2 rounds of antibiotics. Each box was 7,000 pesos.
Jesus.
So how much is that?
It's like $400.
Yeah, each box was 7,000 pesos. And I took the first box. And then once I was done with the first box, they were like, oh, you're going to need another round of antibiotics. I'm like, are you kidding
It's like
me?
$400.
That's another 400. That's just on one medication.
Yeah.
I needed to take like, I think at that time it was around 10 medications that I needed to take.
Dang.
Plus someone had to come every day to do my massages. So every massage was like 300 pesos.
Every day?
Every single day, I had to do a massage.
Dang.
And plus, we're paying for the Airbnb, the flight, the nanny, the food that we're consuming while we're there.
Food is always the most expensive.
We had to rent a car. All of this stuff that's like stacking up. And
the shapewear, right? Or
he gave me the shapewear. Yeah, the first one. But then after that, you have to pay for a bunch of other shapewear. So then I remember my mom left. She was only there for a week. And then I went back for my 1 week checkup. And I get there and I am just like white as a ghost. I can barely walk. I walk into the doctor like a zombie.
He was probably like, oh my God.
He takes one look at me and he is like, you good? And so I go in there and he sees me and he's like, so how are you doing? And I just look at him and I break down crying.
Oh
and if you know me, like that is like, I was like at my wits end at that point and I just start crying and he just gives me a hug and he's like, I know, you thought you were stronger than this, huh? And I was like, yes. He's like, I see it all the time. Women come in here and they think that they're going to be so strong and that this isn't going to happen to them. And, you know, the women who suffer are weak women, that they're strong. He's like, but I told you this was going to be a gigantic surgery. And I told you it was going to be hard. And he's hugging me. And so he's like, but you're going to get through this. And like, it's going to be okay. He's like, I see this every day. Like, don't worry. We're here to support you. You know, we're here for you. But he's like, but I want you to go get some tests done to see how you're doing. Because I think he could see that I looked like I was just, there was no life in me at that point. And so I go to and I didn't take him seriously. So, I mean, I could barely like get around. And so, you know, that day I remember I was so tired. And so I went back to the Airbnb and then like a couple of days later, I went to the hospital to get my tests done. And I sent the results over to the doctor and the assistant like messaged me and she was like, you have to go to the hospital right now. And I was like, oh my gosh, why? I was like, why? And she was like, he's like, you're showing like signs of like you have a really weak immune system. Like and at that point, like I wasn't eating because I was in so much pain that I didn't even want to eat. And I was like, okay. And so I go to the hospital and they admit me and he comes in like a little while later and he's like, you're not taking care of yourself. You're not eating. You're not drinking water. Like he's
and
like,
you're like, how'd you know?
I know. I was like, what? And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, your immune system is super weak and you're more prone to infection. And if you have a weak immune system, you're not going to be able to recover from those infections. He's like, so until you're more responsible, you're going to stay at the hospital. And so he kept me at the hospital for like 5 days.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Castigada. Oh, grounded.
I was in so much trouble. And he was so mad at me. He's like, and it's basically like, I took it like, you're not dying on my watch, you know? Like, like if you're not going to take care of yourself, like I'm going to put you in hospital jail.
Like in Dr. Now and Secure Upon Life.
And keeps you in the hospital. He's like, and it all goes back to like obviously he doesn't want anything to happen to his patients. Mm-hmm. And although like I thought he was being a little bit like unreasonable, you know, because I didn't feel that sick, I could understand that it's like one more day of me not taking care of myself, you know, it could have been catastrophic. Yeah. And so, you know, when I was in the hospital, they started to give me my meals every 3 meals, you know, like, so I was eating all my meals, but like it was miserable because I was at the hospital. My husband had to be there with me. My sister and the nanny had to stay with the kids at the Airbnb. Like it was a nightmare. My mom had already left at this point. And so I was in the hospital for like 5 days. And then the doctor would come in like at the end of every day to check on me. And then I'd be like, can I please go home now? And he's like, no, I don't trust you. And so then like after 5 days, he's like, okay, you're gonna take care of yourself. I was like, yes. I promise I'm gonna take care of myself.
This is what, like the 2-week point?
No, it was like the week and a half. So I was there for like between week 1 and week 2.
Okay.
Yeah. So
and he told you to stay 6 weeks or 4 weeks.
No, at the hospital. I mean, in Mexico, he only made me stay 3 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, but I had to go a week before my surgery.
Yeah.
Because I had to pay for the surgery. And something that I forgot to mention was that even when I went to go pay for the surgery, because I had to pay for the surgery before, so I went in to pay, and I remember the coordinator had told me, like, "You're paying for the surgery, but if you don't wanna do this the day of the surgery, we'll give you your money back."
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he was like, "If you, at that day, you decide you don't wanna do this, the only thing that we'll charge you is, like, the deposit for the operating room, but all the money the doctor was gonna charge me, they would give it back to me."
Wow,
And
that's
so they
good.
were, like, very ethical.
Yeah.
They were on top of everything, and so he told me I only had to stay if it was lipo and breast job, it was 2 weeks, but because it was a tummy tuck, I had to stay the 3 weeks. And
I'm
so
curious, right now that you said that, did he ever tell you that you could do the tummy tuck and get your tubes tied in the same surgery?
no.
No, because I read about a surgeon that does that here. Like, he'll
Oh.
do a tummy tuck, but he'll tie your tube at the same time.
That yeah, and that's interesting. I mean, we can probably talk about it in a different episode, but at this point, I hadn't gotten my tubes tied. And I really wanted to do that before the surgery, but some things had happened that, like, I ended up not getting it done. I mean, I wish that would have been an option, that
Mhm,
would have been
yeah.
pretty cool, but no, I think the only new thing that I didn't know about that he did was they do this thing called an internal corset, because when a woman has a baby, apparently her stomach muscles
Uh-huh.
separate,
Yeah.
and so what they do is they go back, the surgeon goes in and puts them back together,
He didn't do that?
and it's yeah, he did, and it's called an
Oh.
internal corset, so that he did that. So that was, like, the tummy tuck and the internal corset,
Oh,
and
okay.
then the breast lift, and then I didn't end up getting the implants, but it's funny because he did the internal corset and I couldn't breathe
Yeah,
because,
well,
like
I imagine.
yeah, it's like having a corset on, like, I couldn't breathe for, like, the first 2 weeks, I had to learn how to breathe again
Oh my
because I
gosh.
couldn't breathe normally. And so all that happened, so I recovered and it was really hard. Like I said, I had to get massages done, like, every day that hurt so bad because my skin was so, like, it hurt and it was so sensitive, and so she had to do all these massages on me, and I had to take all the medication, and I was still on bed rest, and I couldn't sleep because, I had a BBL, but I also
Yeah.
got my breasts done. So I couldn't even find a comfortable position to even I couldn't sit, I couldn't lay, I couldn't stand. It was like a freaking nightmare. So I all the time passes and I end up, you know, coming back to the States, and I get here and that's where the real recovery started. And I
Mhm.
think that it was really hard for me, because I had to wear a faja like 24/7. So I had to wear one, there was one for the night and one for the day. And so the one for the day was like one of those Colombian fajas that are super
Mhm. Yeah.
tight. And I had to wear a little marble inside of my belly button because they reconstruct your entire belly button, and so you have to put a marble in there so it gives it the shape. And so I remember I put, like, the marble in, and I put the faja on, and it was super tight, and I work, like, sitting down, and so it was super uncomfortable to sit and to do
Yeah.
anything. And I it's so funny because I didn't really tell anybody that I was getting the surgery, like, at work, and so it was kinda like, it was, like, weird because I had to wear the faja, and then I was still in so much pain, and I remember, like, I came back to work, like, 5 weeks after I had had the surgery, and I was still in so much pain, and I was like, "I'm not gonna make it." Like, all I wanted to do was, like, lay in bed because the pain was so much, I couldn't even
Yeah.
function. And, like, I couldn't lift my kids, I couldn't, like, do any, like, um I could barely move. I had to
Mhm.
be super careful. And so I came back, and I remember as soon as I got back, I was like, about 4 or 5 weeks post-op, my breast fell.
Oh my
Yeah, like,
gosh.
the lift, because when I had my surgery, it looked amazing, and, like, I remember, like, almost as soon as I came back, my breast had already fallen
Yep.
back to, and he
Jesus.
reduced my breast, like, 4 sizes, and the shape was amazing and everything, but then, yeah, like, 4 weeks after, or 5 weeks after my surgery, my breast had already fallen back again, so it was like, I was distraught. I was like, "This is insane, like, I just spent all this money to have this surgery," and at that point, I was super swollen in my head, like, I couldn't really tell that I had a BBL because the rest of my body was so swollen that it
Yeah.
just didn't look good. I didn't feel good, I didn't feel like I looked good, and my breast had fallen again, and I had spent all this money, like, I think at the end, with all, like, the surgery and the medication and the massages and the Airbnb and the travel and everything to have the surgery, I think I spent, like, $40,000
In total.
in total.
Holy.
Yeah,
Oh my god.
and so, imagine, like, I just felt like I just blew my entire life savings, the time that everybody took to go and help me, the emotional
Yeah.
strain that I'm like, it's not just about the money, it's about the emotional currency that it took for me to go through all of this to feel like so unhappy with the way that I looked and just feeling like, and I think that definitely I hit rock bottom. Like, if I was an alcoholic, that is what rock bottom looked like, because it was a moment where I was like, I am never gonna be happy. It just brought me back to that place of feeling like I'm never gonna be happy. Like,
Mhm.
happiness doesn't exist for me because I went through all of this with the surgeon that I wanted to, that I dreamed of having my surgery with, and I'm still not happy with the way that I look. Like, I'm just have an inability to ever have what I want. And I just felt so destroyed. So I remember I messaged, like, the doctor, because it was, like, the doctor who did my surgery and then the doctor's basically, like, assistant who's also a doctor, and she was the one who was, taking care of me post-op, and they had a 24/7 nurse, or she was 24/7,
Wow.
so anytime I would message her, she would reply to me, and she
Dang.
always replied to me, and so she was, even after, and he told me, like, after I left, after I had my last consult a after I had my last check-in with him, he was like, "We're always gonna be here for you. It doesn't matter if it's 5 years down the line or a month
Mhm.
down the line, like, we are your doctors, and if anything happens, let us know. We're here for you. It's not just because you already left that we're not your doctor
Yeah.
anymore. Like, please call me." And so I remember I messaged the doctor, and she was probably so sick of me because I would always message me like, "I'm just so unhappy with the way that I look, and, like, I don't feel like the BBL, it was, like, what I wanted," and, like, all this stuff, and she was always super patient with me, and she would be like, "It takes time, Evelyn, like, it's gonna take you a minimum of 6 months just to reduce the swelling." She's like, "But honestly, you're not gonna see results until at least a year." And so I
Did
was
they
just,
say that before?
yeah, they did.
Okay.
They were very honest with me, but I think it was more of like, I
You
didn't
didn't
wanna
wanna hear it.
believe it.
Yeah.
I didn't wanna believe it. I was like, "No, like, they're just exaggerating."
Mhm.
And so I couldn't exercise until 6 months after the surgery because
Dang.
I had the tummy tuck, and, my scar was still closing. Well, the ones on my breast and my tummy. Yeah, so I remember a couple months after I had come back, I summoned the courage to message the doctor and the doctor who was helping me through my post-op, and I was like, "Hey, like, I'm not sure what happened, but I just feel like my breasts, like, fell, and, like, the shape and, like, the size I love, but I just feel like they're sagging again, and,
Mhm.
like, I don't understand why." And I just have so much mad respect for them, for their professionalism. Within the hour, the surgeon
Oh, dang.
had replied to me, and he had sent me an audio saying, like, "I'm so sorry about, like, that, but, it happens. It's just your skin is so elastic, and I told you that this was a risk," and he did tell me it was a risk, that it could happen. He's like, it's just sometimes that happens, and your skin is very elastic, and it was a possibility, but if you want it to be fixed, the only option would be for you to go through another breast reduction." And he's like, and I think that, like, the logic was that he had given me breasts proportional to my body. So he
Mhm.
wanted me to look proportional, so he did
Mhm.
that. But he's like, we ran the risk of them sagging because they're still heavy. They're still heavy
Yeah.
and your skin is still elastic. And so at that point, I was like, "Oh my gosh, imagine if I would have gotten implants."
Oh, you would have been.
I would have been
Oh, yeah, that would have.
suicidal. I would have been suicidal. And so, he was always very honest and professional about, about my concerns. And so at that point, I was just, I felt so defeated. I was like, I didn't look how I wanted to look. My breasts, the whole reason I had had surgery
Yeah.
was because of my breasts, and they now were sagging again. And so at the 6-month mark, when I finally was able to start, going to the gym, and I would say that that was like my turning point in life, because I was so depressed and I was so sad, and, like, I didn't even wanna get out of bed. I just didn't wanna do anything because I was so unhappy with the way that I looked. And then I felt like I couldn't turn to anyone because it's like people are like, "Well, you did this to yourself. You
Mhm.
chose to have this surgery." And then like other people are like, "Well, you're crazy. You look good." And I'm like, "Well, I don't feel
Yeah.
good." And it's just like that's the whole thing. Like, yeah, maybe on the outside I may look good, but in on the inside I'm way too sad to be able to accept that I even
Yeah.
look good. And it's like I swear to you for the first like year, I swore I looked exactly the same. I was like, I could not like it's like looking into the mirror and all I could see was my old body.
But looking back now, at the pictures now from the first year, do you see the difference?
Yeah. And sometimes what I would do is I would go back to the pictures that I sent the doctor originally to look, and I would look at them and be like, I mean, I guess I look a little bit different. Like I still couldn't
Uh-huh.
even process like how different I actually looked.
And in that first year, before you started being able to go to the gym, how are you coping?
Just being sad. I mean, just being so sad and like not wanting to talk about it and like just deflecting the issue and
Mm.
just being in denial, I guess. Just being in super denial and just being really sad and just being convinced that I was just gonna have surgery again because I was very unhappy with the way that I looked.
So at this point, you didn't have your nutritionist or your personal trainer or anything like that?
So I came back and I still had a little bit of time where I still had a free diet. So then 6 weeks after my surgery was when I got our first nutritionist.
Mhm.
So the woman who helped me. And so I met with her and I told her basically like, I want a smaller waist, a bigger butt, this is what I want. And she was like, yeah, like that's totally possible with a diet. And so I worked with her for a while. And so she helped me get on my meal plan and I was doing my meal plan. And then once I was able to go to the gym, I got a trainer and he started sending me, and he actually works with people who are post-op and he told me, he's like, you need to go to therapy. He told me, he's like, you
Really?
need to go to therapy because this is not just physical, it's a mental load that you're taking from the surgery. And if you don't work on your mental health, you're never going to feel happy with the way that you look. The,
Yeah.
the trainer told me
That's
that.
insane.
And so at that point, like, I was so unhappy. Like, I just was kind of resigned to the fact that I was just never going to be happy with my surgery and I just had to live with it. And so once I got to the 6 month mark was when I really started to shift my mindset. And I was like, you know what? If I want to look better, I have to put in the work to do it because the doctor did as much as he could for me. And
Mhm.
it's like, that's the thing. Like, when I look back at the picture that I sent him, he did exactly what I told him to do. Like, he left me exactly like the picture I sent him. But I'm like, only man to ever actually listen to me. I'm like, why couldn't he have given me more?
Yeah.
More hips, more butt? Like, why did he have to listen to me?
So do you think the problem was that, like, you didn't take the time to look for someone that you actually wanted to look like? You just kind of rushed into finding whichever picture, and that's the one that you sent?
Honestly, I feel like I was too embarrassed to ask for what I wanted because I was
Mm.
really afraid of what people were gonna think of me. Like I was really afraid, like, how are people gonna see me at work? What is my family gonna think if
Yeah.
I get like, if I get what I actually wanted? People are gonna be like, oh my gosh, look, she doesn't look good or she looks too fake or,
Yeah.
And so I was just scared to actually like ask for what I really wanted. So I went with something more conservative. And that was like my biggest problem because the doctor gave me exactly what I asked for.
Mhm.
And so I think in my head, I was like, well, I'm going to ask for a little bit less just in case he gives me a little bit more. But
Mm.
he didn't. He
Yeah.
did exactly what I asked
So
him to
did
do.
you, in hindsight, did you wanna look a little bit more like buchona, like a little more, like, curvy? Or did you wanna still look slimmer, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the problem is that I don't know what I want, and I think that
A
and
little
on
bit of
no,
everything.
honestly, I think the problem is that I'm just not happy. Like, the grass is always greener on the other side.
Yeah.
In my head, I'm like, "Oh, if I would've gotten a little bit more, I would've been a little bit more happy." But maybe I would've gotten a little bit more, and I would've been really self-conscious, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't have liked how I looked? Like, my aunt, because she was literally, like, my punching bag because anytime I would be like, and I'm not saying this jokingly, but anytime that I was really, like, rock bottom feeling like, "I'm not gonna make it, this is way too hard, and I'm so unhappy," and I would call her and I would be crying my guts out to her and she would be like, And she would tell me, like, she had a lot of friends who got, like, surgeries really exaggerated, and she was like, they went back to get them reversed because they were so unhappy with the way that they looked. And, like, I would kind of, like, be, like, spiraling, and then she would kind of bring me back to earth. And I think that it's just I think that I would have wanted, like, more exaggerated, but I wanted to look slim. So it's like, how
Yeah.
does that even, like, I don't even know what that looks like, right?
Yeah. I mean, I remember something that I told you when you mentioned that is that now you have like a foundation. Like you can work on it and build on it at the gym, but now you don't have to have the feeling of like, oh, I got way too much and now I have to go get it reversed in surgery.
Yeah,
Like now you can fix whatever you want in the gym.
yeah,
But at that point, like that's not something that someone wants to hear because
no.
then we've never come from a family of exercising. So for us, it's like for you, it was probably like I went to get this really painful surgery and now I have to go through exercise or something that we've never been taught to do to get the results that I want.
And I think, like, in the at the bottom of my heart, that's what frustrates me, that it's like the the scale between the cost of looking good and all the sacrifice that I make to look good, that when I look at myself, I'm like, "Is it even worth it?"
Mhm.
Like, everything that I have to do, like, I had to meal prep, like, 5 days a week, I am, like, eating literally, like, a specified diet of things that I don't even like to eat, but I eat them because it's what's gonna get me to my goal. And then I have to be at the gym 5, 6 days a week. You know, sometimes I'm there for 2 hours a day. Like, the surgery, the money, the time, the gym, the food. And then I look at myself at the end of the day and I'm like, to look like that? You know? And it's like, it's not that I look bad. It's just that the cost, emotional cost of everything that I have to do to get to where I wanna be, it's like, is it even worth it? Like, that's kind of where, like, I really struggle, because I think I had mentioned to you a couple times, I'm like, if I would've just dieted and exercised for a year, like, would I have looked less and, like, marginally much better or less better, you
Mhm.
know? It's like, and I think that's, like, my bad way of thinking, where it's like, why did I even spend the money? Why did I even go through all the pain when I could have just gone to the gym for a year and done a diet and
But
maybe
you probably never would have.
no, and that's the thing, I would have just never done that, and I think the reason why I got pushed to that was because I was back against a wall,
Yeah.
and I was like, at this point, I spent all my money, I've drained all my resources, like, at this point, a surgery isn't even an option anymore, so I have to do something
Mhm.
if I'm gonna make it through this, I need to do something,
Yeah.
and that's when I started going to the gym and taking my nutrition seriously, and that's why I say to everyone, I'm like, yeah, the surgery changed my life, but not in the way I thought it was gonna change my
Mhm.
life. It didn't change my life in the way that, you know, all of a sudden I woke up one day and I was happy and my life had changed and it was all rainbows and butterflies. Like, no, I had to wake up one day and choose, like, I need to change my life. And I remember I started going to the gym, and because that wasn't something that we were used to, my husband was kinda like, "Oh, like, you're not gonna be able to sustain this lifestyle." And not in a mean way, but, like, in a realistic way, like, our life doesn't accommodate for this type of lifestyle.
Yeah.
And so I had to make the hard decision to be like, "No, I'm going to the gym, and I'm sticking to my routine, and I'm sticking to my diet." And it's really hard, and sometimes I look back and I think about everything that it's cost me to get to where I am now, and sometimes I'm sad about that. I'm like, "It's cost me way too much to
Yeah.
get where I am. Was it worth it?" I don't know. I think that, the mind is a wild place, and I think, like, the doctor gave me, like you said, he gave me the foundation, and he gave me the shape that I mean, I don't think I would have gotten this shape at the gym. There's things
Yeah.
that I think the gym can't, fix, obviously, like my breasts and things like that. But it just goes back to what he said. It's a lifelong commitment. It's a quick fix. It's something that you have to work towards your entire life. There's only so much he can do.
Yeah. How do you think someone can prepare mentally and emotionally before choosing to have surgery?
Oh, that's a hard one. I mean, honestly, I feel like you can't prepare for something like that. And I would say that even though it's really hard, you have to go in it with realistic expectations because, like the doctor said, they're not God. Like, there's only so
Yeah.
much they can do, and they can only take you so far, but you're the one who has to upkeep, the results
Mhm.
and go to the gym and even now to this day, I still have to get post-op massages, like
Really?
yeah, like, I still am going through this phase, like, I had my surgery 18 months ago, and I still have to go through all these things, like, my scars aren't 100% healed yet. I'm still I have to go to the gym, I have to get the post-op massages, like, there's still these things that it still affects my life, up until this
Mhm.
day, and so it's like, it's a really long commitment, and I would say, like, I forgot to talk about it, but I remember that day that I went for my 1 week post-op, uh, appointment with him, and he saw how, distraught I was, and he actually went out to the waiting room to talk to my husband, and he told my
Really?
husband, like, "You need to take care of her because she's deteriorating, like, her mental health is deteriorating, like, you need to support her, like, she needs you right now, like, this is gonna be really hard for her, she's gonna be in a lot of pain, and, like, basically step up,"
Yeah.
and I just thought, like, that's why I have so much praise for him because, like, he isn't just there to just, do my surgery and go home with his day's earnings, like, he's there thinking of everything and talking to my family, making sure that they know that this is something that I decided, but it's something that affected my entire family, and so, I would say that if anyone is thinking about getting surgery, definitely don't go into it lightly because it is such a big commitment and you need a support system around you, not just for the physical, but the mental. Like, I remember you being there for me a lot and me like telling you how unhappy I was and how I just felt like, why did I do this? Like, I regretted it so much. Like, the girl who did my post-op massages, like, I remember crying to her every time I went to see her. My aunt was always there for me, talking me down from my spirals. It's like, you're gonna need the support.
Yeah. I definitely agree. I think mentally and emotionally, like, you have to have a village of people that are gonna be there for you. But I think also taking into consideration the physical and lifestyle factors, like, I personally, if someone is gonna get surgery, I would advise them to start changing their lifestyle now
Yeah.
and incorporating exercise, incorporating a healthy diet, because I think for me, that's what destroyed my results, is the fact that I didn't have a healthy relationship with food. I wasn't very active, and I kind of thought of it as just a fix instead of a foundation, which if you're gonna have surgery, like, you need to go through that mental shift of, like, you're not gonna come out with what you want.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a foundation to build on what you want to look like. So I think for me, like, my number one advice would be to go at least 3 to 6 months of living a healthy lifestyle before having surgery, because I think for me, and we'll talk about this, but my future plans with plastic surgery and body image is, like, I want to have surgery. I want to have a mommy makeover, which is everything, like a tummy tuck, a breast lift, a BBL, everything. And I know for myself, like, I am working so hard on fixing my relationship with food and exercise so that one day when I decide to go through the torture of having surgery,
Yeah.
it's gonna be worth it. Because the last thing I want is to go through it again and then be back at square
Yeah.
one of, like, I ruined my results and also being in therapy. Because the body dysmorphia that someone
Yeah.
goes
It's
through
so
after
real.
surgery is so mind-boggling, and like you said, like, people on the outside will tell you you look so good, but you don't believe it because you can't see the difference,
Yeah.
and it's literally your mind playing games on you, and that's something that you have to work on in therapy.
Yeah, well, you start to, like, nitpick, but, like, what
Yeah.
about this and what about that? And
Mhm.
then your mind starts to go, like, "But what if I would've gotten a little bit more? What if I would've gotten, like,
Yeah.
my breasts? What if I would've gotten smaller? Maybe this wouldn't have happened to me," and, like, going back and forth with myself and just being, like, so miserable, and I think, like, 6 months after, like, of complaining and crying all day, my husband was like, "Fine, if you want surgery again, you can have it, but you're not gonna have it until minimum a year and a half later."
Yeah.
Like, because he, like, knew that it was, like, my mind that was just, like, but I at that point, he just, like, had just about had it with me, like, crying every single day, and, like, I swear to you, like, every time I would look into a mirror, I would start crying for, like, the first, like, year. I was at the gym for, like, 4 months, about 4 months when I called my older sister, and I just was broke down crying, and I was just like, "I hate how I look." Like, I've already been to the gym and on diet for 4 months at this point, and I don't see a results, I don't see a change. Like, I just feel like I'm like a hamster wheel just going
Yeah.
in circles with no results. And I'm just like, I was distraught. And my sister, she's a very calm person. And so she was just like, "Well, what is it that you don't like about your body?" And I was like, and I just told her what I didn't like. And then she was like, "Okay, like, well, you can work out that stuff at the gym and you just have to give it more time. 4 months is not enough time to see
Yeah.
results at the gym." And then I was like, "I think I'm just gonna have surgery again." She's like,
Oh,
"Do
no.
not." She was like, "Do not have," I almost felt her go through the phone and like grab me.
Well, she's the one that took care of your kids,
Yeah, she
right?
took care of my kids. And she was like, "Do not get surgery again." And at this point, I was like, how many months? Like 8 months post-op. And she was like, "Do not even think about it." She was like, "Okay, let's make a deal." She's like, "Give it 6 months at the gym. At the 6-month mark, call me again and, we'll talk again." She's like, "But do not do anything." And then I was like, "Okay, okay, fine." And so it wasn't really until like my 1 year and months of having surgery that I finally started to see a little tiny bit
Mhm.
results. And now that I'm like at the 18-month mark, I do feel better about how I look, but like I said, a lot of that was also gym, a lot of that was also lifestyle change. So it's really hard to dissect out like,
Yeah.
like what was surgery, and because it was obviously, like, I'm not discounting the doctor's like work because he did an amazing job, but it that didn't really get me that far, I guess.
Yeah.
The thing is that like that's where the body dysmorphia comes in because it's like when I sent him that picture, that was a dream. I was like, "This is the dream. Oh my gosh, if I look like that is like I'm living my dream. That is the best possible result that could happen." And then I got exactly what I wanted and I wasn't happy. So it's
Yeah.
like you said, it's mental also. And I've been working on that in therapy. And now there will be days where I look at myself and I love how I look and I'm obsessed with the way that I look and I'm so excited. And then like I want to look in the mirror. And then there's times that I wake up and I hate how I look and I'm like, "Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, like, why do I look like this? Yesterday I had my stomach was a little flatter, yesterday this, yesterday that." And so it comes in cycles still.
Yeah. Do you think you'll do the 10-year touch-up or no?
Honestly, if I'm being honest, I am planning to have surgery again, but I'm still thinking about it because I want to. I want to get my breasts fixed, but I don't want to start over. And I think that's the thing that it's like I already went through all that pain and recovery and even just like the wounds, like your body itself takes so much, for me at least, for the swelling to go down, it took like 8 months just for the swelling to go down. And so to think that I have to start that process all over again and be back where I started in that scary place and then still wait a whole another year to see results, it's like, is it even worth it? I don't know.
It's like having 2 kids.
I'm like, it's really scary and I don't like the thing is that I may not be content with the way that I look, but I don't know if I have it in me to be miserable with the way that I look for another year, having to start over from the beginning. So, I mean, I have to outweigh the pros and cons. And I talked to the surgeon and I went as far as getting like a quote because um, he told me that he would fix my breast, but obviously, like, he is going to charge me not for his time, but like the hospital
Yeah.
and everything. So he's not going to charge me the implant, but there's things, there's costs to it. So
Mhm.
it's not free. And so when I kind of have to think about that and think about like not just having the cost of the surgery again, but then like the Airbnb and the travel and it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's not just my decision anymore. Like I have to take my kids, my husband has to go with me to take care of me. So it's like it when I'm looking and trying to weigh the pros and cons, there's a lot more cons,
Yeah.
but then it's like the body dysmorphia that it's like and then like I told you many times, I'm like, I'm so scared to get surgery and look worse.
Yeah. That's all.
That's what scares me.
You're just preaching to the choir, I
Yeah.
know.
And so it's like, do I wanna take that risk? Because right now, I look exactly how I wanted to look, but now I wanna look different. And
Yeah.
so if I keep chasing that, if I keep listening to myself and keep chasing this, like, dream, maybe I'm just gonna end up messing up myself. So I don't know, I would say it's really scary out there.
Wanna end on that note?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we wanna tell anybody out there, though, like, be very careful with the people that you go
Yes.
surgery with, like,
Make
I
sure they're licensed, make sure they are actually plastic surgeons and not some other people off the street. Make
yeah, just
sure
be
you're
careful.
doing the consultations, like, look with various doctors. Because
Yeah.
my mistake was I went to, like, the first doctor that I liked, but go to various doctors, ask them all the questions, and don't be embarrassed to ask them, like, for asking them what you want, but also asking their opinions, because I think my problem was that I was just too scared to ask them questions.
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, I'm probably wasting their time asking them
Yeah.
questions."
But
But
that's
no,
their
you're
job.
paying to be there,
That's
and
their
that's their
job.
job.
Yeah.
So make sure that you're advocating for yourself.
Yeah, and if you guys want recommendations on the, surgeons that we did our surgery that we liked the results, you can DM us, and we are more than happy to give you guys the information. It's so funny because when we had my baby moon for my second son, we went to Cancun, and there
Uh-huh.
was this lady who looked banging. She looked so good.
That
And she
lady.
was like older. I think she
Yeah,
must have been like in her 50s or
at
60s.
least.
And she looked amazing. And I was pregnant, and I went and I asked her, like, oh, would you mind, like, you could tell she had surgery.
She had implants.
Like her, you
You
could
could
tell the
tell.
implants. You could definitely tell implants right away. And I asked her, like, hey, would you mind recommending to me, like, the surgeon who did your breast? And she straight up looked at me and told me that she'd never had surgery before.
Don't gatekeep. We know it's a lie.
I was like, you're gonna be punished for lying to a pregnant lady. And I was so mad. So we are more than happy to give you
Yes.
guys the information if you want it. But thanks for listening. Make sure to like, follow, and give us a 5-star review if you're liking the podcast. Also, check us out on Instagram. We share behind the scenes photos and updates after every episode. And if you're interested in being a guest, the link is in our caption and Instagram bio. New episodes drop every Monday. See you next week on Choices Are Made.
Bye.
Thank you.